is Russia's battlefield shifting from Ukraine to the U.S. political system. And, you know, the essence of this is that we were united essentially in supporting Ukraine against Russian aggression, against the Russian attacks. You know, across the United States, there was a broad consensus that this is just wrong. You know, to attack a democracy for basically no reason, to say, well, you know, this was our land back when Catherine the Great took it. No, it's not. It hasn't been for quite a while. But now we have a number of Republicans, including Jim Jordan, who wants to be Speaker of the House. In fact, there's, like I said, there may be a vote this afternoon. And, you know, dancing to Donald Trump's tune. And, of course, Donald Trump is dancing to Vladimir Putin's tune, which is, Ukraine is mine, mine, mine. And now you have increasing numbers of Republicans embracing that as well and saying, no, we should not aid Ukraine. Now, you know, the simple reality is that we have spent a little bit of money, just a very, you know, 2% of our defense budget for 1 year, a relatively minor amount of, you know, a kind of a rounding error in terms of our defense budget on supporting Ukraine. And the result of that, without a single American soldier in danger, the result of that has been the destruction of more than 4,000 Russian tanks, 8,000 armored personnel carriers, several Russian warships, 3 elite Russian brigades, a major Russian air defense system. Russia's 72nd Motor Rifle Brigade has been destroyed. The 31st Air Assault Brigade has been destroyed. The 83rd Air Assault Brigade crushed. That's pretty good. I mean, you know, that's pretty good bang for your buck, as it were. And yet, we have Republicans like Jim Jordan and Donald Trump saying, you know, and Josh Hawley, for God's sake, you know, Mr. Give a raised fist to the people as they're attacking the U.S. Capitol. That traitor tweeted yesterday that he thought that we should redirect all our aid to Ukraine over to Israel, as if we can't do both. I mean, again, we're talking about, you know, pennies, relatively speaking, when it comes to the U.S. federal budget. But the point that I wanted to make is that this is a symptom of a successful strategy by Putin and Russia, which is to shift the battlefield away from Ukraine and to the United States political system. You've got Tucker Carlson openly supporting Russia to the point that he's on Russian television almost every day. You've got, or being quoted on Russian television. You've got you know, a handful now, but, you know, it's enough to cause a serious problem. It's 20, 25 or so Republicans in the House, 6 or 7 in the Senate, who are saying no more aid to Ukraine. I mean, this is a victory for Putin. And he got there by pouring money and resources, trolls and bots specifically, into social media. Zuckerberg wants to increase his profits on Facebook, and so he's dialed back on the number of people who are fact-checking and moderating content. Same thing for Elon Musk. You know, some people are attributing even more sketchy motives to both of them, that they're, you know, supporting Putin or they're supporting the Republicans or whatever. You know, it's hard to say, but nobody can dispute that they have cut back on content moderation, and the result of that is that the Russian trolls and bots are all over the place on those two platforms. And it's having an impact. And it's causing American politicians, to dance to that tune. I don't have an easy answer for this. And by the way, it's not just working on the right. Last week, I tuned into a community station, a radio station, and was just, you know, listening to one of the hosts. And he went into this whole long rant about how, you know, supporting Ukraine is the same thing as supporting Lyndon Johnson going into Vietnam. Well, it's not. It's a completely different thing. But, you know, we've got these so-called lefties, right? People who say, oh, I'm a socialist, I'm a lefty, and then they're supporting Russia over Ukraine. They're supporting a fascist state over a democracy. That's not left. That's right. That's as hard right, that's as far right as you can get to be supporting Russia. And yet I'm hearing this on some of these so-called progressive radio stations. It blows my mind. So anyway, this is well, in fact, Asha Rangappa has this Substack newsletter called Freedom Academy. And over at Asha's newsletter, Asha has translated a Russian intercepted instruction to their troll farm, to the Internet Research Agency troll farm. Let me read it to you. This is the English translation of a Russian instruction. Fully support Donald Trump and express hope that this time around Congress will be forced to act as Trump says it should with regard to aid to Ukraine. Emphasize that if Congress continues to act like the colonial British government did before the War of Independence, this will call for another revolution. Summarize that Trump once again proved that he stands for protecting the interests of the United States of America. This is Russians, this is Putin telling his trolls how to do this. And like I said, on the left and the right, it's working. Democrats in Congress are saying, okay, Republicans, you want to respond to public opinion, you want to send some military aid to Israel or any kind of aid to Israel. Now, Biden has already done this, by the way, using some of the powers that he has. He's already military and other aid has already shown up in Tel Aviv. But if Congress wants to pass some serious legislation, Democrats are saying if you want to give money to Israel, we want to tie aid to Ukraine to that. And I completely agree with that. I think it's an important idea. And if you want to call your member of Congress, the number is 202-224-3121. The other thing I wanted to share with you, and then I'll pick up your calls, it being Anything Goes Friday here, or Anything Goes weekend anyway, is what does the day of jihad, actually, I also wanted to share, well, let me get back to that. What does the day of jihad, does it pose a threat? This is, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the head of Hamas from his office in Doha, down the street from where Anthony Blinken is right now, driving around in his Bentley or his Rolls Royce. The head of Hamas has called for Muslims all over the world to take to the streets. Republicans are going, yeah, we'll be armed. Don't worry, we're going to be ready. Buy more AR-15s. Yeah, right. The New York City police, though, have been called out, and Columbia University closed its campus to the public. So, keep an eye on this. I think it's going to be a non-event. I think Hamas has lost an awful lot of support given the brutality of this attack last Saturday in Israel, but we'll see where this goes. And the final thing, residents have been told to flee northern Gaza. Now, Gaza is about 25 miles long, north to south, and about 4 miles wide. It's kind of sort of like Manhattan Island, I guess. And although I don't know that the proportions are the same, I'm not sure what the proportions are of Manhattan Island, but in my mind. But Israel has told the Palestinians in northern Gaza, the Gazans, to flee to the south. Now, Gaza City, which is the most heavily populated part of Gaza, is in the north. And this is going to be very problematic for elderly people, people who don't own a car, people who don't have any way to get out of town. Also, the city they've already bombed the crap out of the city. And a lot of the streets are unpassable because they're filled with rubble from destroyed buildings. One of the people who was quoted by a story over in the Financial Times, she told the reporters for the Financial Times, she said, "I fear Israel may be pushing us to the south, and then they would force us to storm the border into Egypt." That's an interesting, conspiracy theory for the moment, but. Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, says this is a forced displacement and it would be the second Nakba. Nakba is a word for catastrophe, but it's used to apply to when in the 1940s, 1947 I think it was, that as Palestinians were displaced to make way for Israel. He's also calling for humanitarian corridors to Gaza and an end to the Israeli bombing. But this is going to be a real challenge for these folks. It's going to be very, very tough. Meanwhile, just to wrap this up, and then I'll pick up your calls, the people who are involved in these negotiations in the House right now to come up with a bipartisan, kind of a consensus candidate, there's a bipartisan group of roughly 10 House lawmakers, Democrats and Republicans, And they're trying to work out, some sort of a consensus candidate. Representative Maria Salazar, Republican from Florida, says we're open to anything that's reasonable. Bipartisanship is not a sin. Dan Bacon, a Republican from Nebraska, says, we got to get this fixed. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We may end up with a speaker today. I'm skeptical, but we may.